Hello everyone and welcome to Season 5, Episode 24 of Pro Wrestling's Top 50. I'm your host Travis McNeil, and today we continue our countdown of the top 50 matches in NXT history with match number 27 on our list, which is the 8-man tag between the Undisputed Era of Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish, and Roderick Strong against Imperium of Walter, Fabian Aichner, Marcel Barthel, and Alexander Wolfe from the NXT and NXT UK Worlds Collide 2020 event held on January the 25th, 2020. This match originally appeared in our Season 1 countdown of the top 50 matches in 2020. So it is a match I've seen, countless times at this point, and it's one that I love to a pretty high degree. One thing that I didn't mention when I did the introduction for Season 5, when I was trying to determine, what from the NXT catalog I was going to cover, for this countdown, I had to think really long and hard about the inclusion of anything from NXT UK. So before NXT UK really became its own offshoot brand, there was the WWE United Kingdom Championship that would be defended occasionally in NXT. So originally I was going to include matches like Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate from NXT TakeOver Chicago. The rematch that they had on NXT television in December of 2017 as well. And I would kind of cut it off, when the NXT UK brand kind of came, to fruition with their own television show. But then ultimately that led me with matches that, maybe would make the countdown, but it really didn't kind of fit. So for example, Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate to determine the first United Kingdom champion from the UK title tournament. Where would that fit? It wasn't really an NXT show at all, but it was prior to NXT UK. So I kind of got stuck in this little bit of a conundrum, and ultimately I ended up deciding not to include anything NXT UK related, both before or after the real inception of the brand when it launched its own show. So there are going to be some matches missing on this countdown, like Tyler Bate versus Pete Dunne, like Pete Dunne versus Walter from NXT TakeOver New York, like Walter versus Ilya Dragunov from the NXT TakeOver they just did in the summer of 2021. So it is what it is. If I ever do a countdown of top NXT UK matches, which I'm sure probably won't happen anytime soon, but if I were, those matches would get their flowers at that point. That said, I did choose to include this match because it was a straight up co-branded event. So that to me felt, that it was under that NXT umbrella, and it's certainly a great match worthy of inclusion here. It's funny because in yesterday's, video, I did the halftime heat match. And I mentioned that I felt like that was kind of the closest match WWE's ever, put on to kind of emulating, a Dragon Gate tag match. And I feel with this match, and a lot of people might find this comment to be sacrilegious, I feel that this is maybe the closest WWE's done at putting on a classic 90s sort of All Japan style match. And not in any way, a relation of the work or, the moves or anything like that. What I mean by that is it's, two big stars on both sides. You have Adam Cole and you have Walter. And rather than do a one-on-one match with these two, both of these guys are part of stables, that they do this 8-man tag instead of moving to a lot of 6-man tags, especially, in that classic era of All Japan. It's something you still see in New Japan with a lot of the Road 2 shows, right? Where you get these multi-person matches where the big stars are joined by, let's be honest, I'm going to say, as far as a pecking order is concerned, they're inferior stablemates that are kind of there to take the falls and whatnot. And it's usually, build up these two performers, give shine to the other guys, and it has, a certain structure that you see in a lot of those matches, and you see that structure in this match here. And it's something that I think the WWE could utilize far more than it does. We see so many rematches that are just, beat into the ground that we're so sick of them by the time we see the same wrestlers, square off for the 5th, 6th pay-per-view in a row, that, why not use these tag matches? You have workers that are good enough to make them compelling and interesting like this match. And it's something that I wish we saw more of, quite frankly, rather than the rematches and, WWE kind of blowing their load, with, putting matches out there, without proper builds sometimes. So This match is really interesting because there's a mishap very early on where Alexander Wolfe gets completely taken out of the match. He gets kicked in the jaw by Bobby Fish. It's a legitimate injury, and it essentially turns this match into a handicap match. So if you look at it from a handicap match perspective, this is one of the best handicap matches of all time. And the thing that I really love about this, and at the time when this match happened, and I don't, continue to think this way, but upon the initial viewing, I mentioned that it was one of the most compelling WWE matches of all time. And, while I wouldn't go as high with my praise now, having watched it back several times, at the time I was so blown away because the WWE to me always feels like this very forced kind of, sterile environment. And this match had, an accident happen that, required all of these wrestlers and the referees and the commentators and everybody to adjust everything on the fly. And that's something with the WWE kind of causes me a little bit of anxiety because I don't know if they have the ability to do that because things are so meticulously, over scripted and overwritten and over planned out, and nothing ever really truly feels organic to me in the WWE like it might in the independents or internationally or even AEW to an extent. But this match, they did an incredible job with it. They used that handicap aspect and they bled it into the story of their match seamlessly, and it never felt like it was missing something. And it really created this great match that, I thought it was a great roller coaster ride when I watched it live. And now, I know how it plays out, but it's a real joy to watch. It's a really well-crafted match. So how we set this up is the Undisputed Era jumped Walter at the end of NXT TakeOver Blackpool. That led to Walter appearing on NXT television, where he took Adam Cole down with a single chop. So it really put over Walter, his chops as being lethal, and Cole is basically running scared a little bit. And that's the story that they utilized through this match. So, we get our normal feeling out process with the accident with Wolfe getting kicked in the jaw. And this ends up leading to, a very, very brief exchange between Cole and Walter, where, Walter pretty much out of the gates goes for that chop. Adam Cole avoids it and tries to use the numbers game to his advantage and basically get the hell out of the ring. Adam Cole is someone that has such an ego and he's so arrogant and cocky, but they really establish that fear that he has of Walter. And it really puts over Walter as well, because something you have to think about, not all WWE fans, not even all NXT fans watch and are that familiar with NXT UK. A lot of it, the fan base clearly knows Walter in this match, and that's evident because there's a heat sequence on Marcel Barthel at one point where the crowd is doing dueling chants of Undisputed and Let's Go Walter, and Walter's not even in the ring. And it just shows to me they're not chanting, Imperium or, Let's Go Barthel or anything like that. It's Walter is the only one that they know. And this match does a really, really great job at establishing him as this big time attraction, almost Brock Lesnar in a way, where he's so well protected throughout this match that, it makes you feel like he's such a big deal. So, and they do this spot where, Cole kind of gets out of dodge and Roderick Strong comes in. And, you think that normally in a match would be kind of where the tide would shift. And Walter just blasts him with a big boot and just stares daggers at Adam Cole. And it really shows that beef and the conflict that the two of them have. There's a great spot here too where, they get heat on Marcel Barthel for a while and it's good stuff. And Kyle O'Reilly goes and boots Walter on the ring apron with a Yakuza kick. And this is something that we've seen so many times out of Kyle O'Reilly, and I've talked about it in these videos, where, he'll do that during the heat sequence to extend and lead up to that hot tag. But when he boots Walter, Walter doesn't even bump off the apron and just kind of looks at him like, you're a dead man now. Ends up getting the hot tag and just comes in and destroys Kyle. He hits him with a big German, crumples him with the slap, goes for another German, and Kyle is just grabbing whatever he can do, and he grabs onto Roderick Strong, so Walter just Germans both of them at the same time. It's just really incredible stuff. Again, putting over Walter, that he wouldn't succumb to these tactics that these guys have used successfully against everyone else. One thing that I really like about this match too is that, I guess there's a face and heel dynamic a bit, with Cole being kind of slimy and Walter being this juggernaut. But both of these factions really are kind of considered heels or because they're cool and the crowd still likes them, they're tweeners. So, you get kind of this really cool, point where, you get the heat sequence on Barthel, but then it shifts and they get the heat sequence on Kyle, who has to fight from underneath. And, it leads to a hot tag for Roderick Strong. And I talked about this in the War Games video a while back, where Roderick Strong is this dynamic and energetic and compelling wrestler, and he's so great off a hot tag. But in that War Games match, it kind of feels weird that you have this heel coming in as a house of fire, hitting all of these big moves while the crowd pops and goes crazy. But here it works because he's coming in and he's doing all of this, basically to guys that are also sort of heels. So it feels a lot more natural. We get a really fun spot with Walter, and it's kind of funny, almost ironic that this match, ended up being a handicap match because of injury. But even if that didn't happen, I'm sure this was all pre-planned, it would have had that handicapped aspect as Walter gets put through the announcer's table and taken out of the match for a little while. And it's so great because I talked at the beginning about this hierarchy and this pecking order and, the partners of Cole and Walter feeling a little inferior. And basically Walter breaks up a pin when Adam Cole looks to have the match won against one of the Imperium guys. And the other three members of the Undisputed Era just pounce on Walter, almost to protect Cole, because, they know that Walter wants to get his hands on him. And it's so great when they do the announcer's table spot because they're triple teaming Walter and he fights them all off and he almost powerbombs Roderick Strong through the announcer's table. Again, just showing how strong and how badass he is. But eventually he does succumb to the numbers and he gets, ankle slammed off one announcer's table through the other by Roderick Strong, which again makes Strong look great. This is my favorite point of the match because it leads to this period where Barthel and Aichner, who are basically the unknowns, really get this chance to shine in battling in this handicap scenario. They do a really great run of double teams, fighting through the 4-on-2 odds. They eventually, get caught. Adam Cole blasts Fabian Aichner with a super kick while he's springboarding into the ring. And they start to get some more heat and these great near falls where these guys keep kicking out. And it leads to an attack on Marcel Barthel's knee. Classic, Kyle O'Reilly, be it with Bobby Fish or Roderick Strong as his partner. And he locks in the knee bar. And as Barthel is trying to make his way to the ropes, Fabian Aichner flies in with his amazing double springboard moonsault that he does. And the crowd comes unglued for it. And it makes them realize, oh, these two guys are kind of special too. And from there, the match just gets elevated into a crazy frenzy, leading us up to our finish. Walter gets back on the apron. The announcers and everybody do a really great job of selling that as, basically King Kong coming back alive. He gets the hot tag. He finally hits the big chop on Cole, which just drops him immediately, which is great. He gets a power bomb and the Superfly splash on Roderick Strong. And they did a really great near fall here too, where as soon as he hits that splash, as he kind of sits up from it, Cole blasts him in the back of the head with the Shining Wizard, the last shot, and gets a 2 count that's broken up by Imperium. And it seemed really believable that Cole would basically slime ball his way into getting this fluke pin, over Walter. But it wasn't to be. We end up getting, the classic NXT trope of the standoff between the two factions with the fists flying in the big exchange. Walter grabs a sleeper on Bobby Fish, but then gets a sleeper, Kyle O'Reilly jumps on his back and he gets taken out with the high-low, their finishing maneuver. We get a big dive sequence that leads to another, jaw-dropping highlight spot for Fabian Aichner, where he hits the Escalera into the high-fly flow, that frog crossbody that Tanahashi does, onto the pile of everybody on the floor. This leaves Fish and Walter in the ring alone. What did I talk about? The pecking order. If you ask me what member of the Undisputed Era I would say would be fourth on the list, it would be Bobby Fish. No offense, Bobby. So he misses a moonsault, and Walter just completely destroys him with a John Woo drop kick, folds him up with the power bomb, and it's enough for 3. Again, staring daggers at Cole that, his team beat Cole's team, but there's still unfinished business there. The thing that I really loved about this match is it was so great in its own right, but it left so much on the table for rematches between these factions, tag matches, singles matches, the big, Walter and Cole showdown eventually that we never got because Cole's not in the WWE anymore. This could have been used for War Games in 2020. There was so much meat left on the bones with this match that sadly just never came to fruition. And it's really disappointing because these were two great factions that made natural rivals that, based on this match, everybody was really excited to see go to war. This match, though, of course, you can watch it on Peacock. If you're outside the US, it's on the WWE Network. You can subscribe to my channel here on YouTube so that you never miss a video. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Wrestling50. And please join me again tomorrow as we continue to count down Pro Wrestling's Top 50.